We have here today Drew Oetzel. And thank you, Drew, for joining me today. For the audience who do not know 70s.
So WKRP in Cincinnati is a pretty famous sitcom from the late 70s, early 80s in the US.
So just as a disclaimer, we are having this conversation and all views, opinions are personal and have nothing to do with our beloved employers. So we can really keep kind of the cloud native talk as clean or as not clean as we want to. Viewers should be aware of that. For anyone who is bizarrely never met you before, what should they know about you, Drew?
I've been working in Silicon Valley since the late 90s. I've seen a lot of different things come and go. I've been through multiple booms now and multiple busts. So my biggest claim to fame these days is I was like employee number 91, I think, or something. Below 100 at Splunk. I was hired at Splunk before they had an HR person. That was kind of a really interesting, fun experience to watch something really snowball. The 1% out of all startups kind of experience. So you're always trying to recreate that.
Have you managed to reproduce the experience you had with Splunk?
Crossing my fingers with Harness. What I say is I've been kissing a lot of frogs. Kiss a frog and you hope it turns into a prince.
Cloud native frogs.
Many of them are cloud native frogs. Yeah.
I did see that you joined recently to Harness.
If you know CI/CD, Harness is CD. It's continuous delivery. The kind of the idea with the metaphor of the name is you're going to harness up all the different systems that you have to integrate to make deployment. The thing I liked about joining Harness is it had a similar kind of Splunk feel to it for me. When I joined Splunk, I was like, who's your number one competitor? And they listed a couple of things, but then they were like, mostly it's scripts. People write grep scripts. And I was like, oh, okay. When I joined Harness, I was like, oh, what's your number one competitor? They mentioned a couple of things, but they're like, mostly it's just scripts kicked off by Jenkins. And I'm like, oh, I like to compete with scripts.
Aren't you annoyed by people that say CI/CD as a one word?
We have a whole slide for that at Harness where it's just like, hey, CI and CD, they're roommates, but they're not the same person.
It's not even a split personality. I mean, it's like different.
Yeah.
I'm totally annoyed by folks that say CI/CD as one word, and I mean, it bugs me. If we were to have breakfast, I mean, pretzel or something.
Probably not a pretzel. I'm more of like an omelet with a side of sausage and hash browns. Typical, very American breakfast. Hash browns have to be well done though. So I usually ask them to burn the hash browns.
Anything interesting you're doing off the grid as far as, hobbies?
It's funny. I was like, oh, I think I need to garden since I'm stuck home and I'm not flying all the time. I'm used to working from home anyway. And so I thought this whole quarantine was not going to be that big of a deal. But it was really getting to me. So starting to work outside made a huge difference.
Does this mean that the garden is pretty much blooming because of the coronavirus?
Yes, there's way more flowers and a few vegetables where there was once just grass.
Let's talk about CI/CD. We're coming from the Kubernetes space, and CI is not CD, and there's a whole religion. What's your perspective on this ecosystem? Like, you see Jenkins as the legacy incumbent, whereas you have projects like Argo and Flux and this whole mega buzzwords flowing around which confuse everyone.
I feel like on the CI side, there has been a lot of innovation. There has been a lot of competition, which brings innovation. On the CD side, things are just starting to heat up. So I think, Harness kind of, and some of their competitors, like Armory and Spinnaker, they're all people starting to get eyes on that.
What's your go-to choice on the CI side?
I don't have strong opinions on that side, to be honest with you. I really don't. If you're going to do it, I would say look for something that's enterprise and support. To me, having support is key once you get beyond a groovy startup size. So once you're hiring more than employee number 91, actual technical support is going to come in to
time to go enterprise. Let's talk about GitOps. What are your thoughts about this extremely buzzy and vague concepts.
It's just another version of a 25, 30-year-old fight. GUI versus command line, GUI versus config file. Quote unquote devs like, GitOps and non-devs like, to look at a GUI. I think products and things that work with both are going to come out better. At the end of the day, you're talking about just two different tools to manage something, in my opinion. It's like an argument between stick shift and automatic transmission. It's like, well, okay. But did you get there? Oh, yeah, you got there. That's great. I don't care which one you use.
I mean, it boils down to the effort and how much blood and tears you need to put into stuff to make it work for you, and whether everybody's happy during this drive.
If you're implementing GitOps because your team looked at GitOps and everybody's excited for GitOps, then it's going to work out well. If you're implementing GitOps because your CTO read a Medium article, then that's going to end in tears.
Git commit and then git push is equivalent to keep control apply. I'm worried.
At Harness, for example, we make our customers ask for push. Like by default, push is turned off. We try to keep you from shooting yourself in the foot unless you specifically say, hey, I want to shoot myself in the foot. Then we say, okay, here's the gun.
Open source has like a hidden and nasty cost into that, where vendors actually, especially the opinionated ones, really help you kind of make those right decisions, which I like.
That's the whole benefit of many of those vendors. I finally came around on OpenShift when I saw their security side.
How did you feel about the secured by default spirit of OpenShift?
That's what brought me around to it. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's not have everything wide open.
Especially with Kubernetes, that the defaults make things work rather than just be secured and then it's not necessarily going to work for you. I'm assuming things will change over time, and they are changing already.
I was working at Mesosphere back in 2016 when Kubernetes was just out, and there was definitely this whole idea of, harden the outside of your cluster, leave things open on the inside. It's fine. You want to let your microservices mingle, let them talk to each other. That's how things grow. And there was definitely an ethos of that. I saw several slide decks that were all about, just harden the perimeter.
That's practice that will get you kind of to the news. But look at it today. I mean, Mesos is D2IQ, and it's all about Kubernetes.
I left it as Mesosphere on my resume, and it will remain Mesosphere on my resume. But their market idea is spot on. Like, if you want to implement Kubernetes, you've got to make 400 other decisions, pick 25 different other softwares, and then find somebody to support that.
They do have the open source mentality, and I really like some of the projects that they do. I mean, I don't know if you picked Kudo as I think, in my opinion, one of the well thought deployment
absolutely.
kind of package management tools out there. Your thoughts and perspective on what happened to Docker and the whole let's call it Broadway show.
Whatever our setup is, be it Kubernetes, Mesos, whatever your container orchestrator is, people have been talking about, we're going to get Docker out of it since I started working at Mesos in 2016. I can count on one hand the number of customers I interacted with that didn't use Docker. Nothing lasts forever, but I would like to point out they were just hiring COBOL programmers here for emergency unemployment reprogramming. So, things last a lot longer than you think, no matter what. So Docker as a container image is here to stay for the time being. Docker as a container orchestration platform, that's not just Kubernetes.
Yeah, that was death before honor.
It got hit by the same tidal wave that Mesosphere got hit with.
Yeah.
And their boat had more holes in it than Mesospheres did. Docker desktop with their little Kubernetes tool that comes with it, it's super nice. I like it. It's free. I didn't pay them any money though.
It's weird. I mean, this whole open source thing. I mean, like, companies will never survive, and then you end up with kind of those, monuments on GitHub with lots of stars and zero activity. Let's test you on the emotional and kind of technical reflexes. CNCF.
Somebody's got to take care of all these projects.
DevSecOps.
I love DevSecOps because you need DevSecOps for the same reason you needed DevOps. Every security teams hate everybody. Everybody hates the security team. And the reason they invented DevOps was because the dev team hated the ops team and the ops team hated the dev team. And I know because I lived it. I was an ops person and I hated the devs. But if you talk to people today, it's the exact same dynamic with the security team is, oh,
True.
security team, all they do is say no. All they do is say no. And then you talk to security team and they're like, well, all they wanted to do was have clear text passwords in their YAML files. So what was I supposed to say?
Istio.
If you're using some provider that provides some form of Istio that is supported, look into it. It's a nice way to run your network.
Jenkins.
Jenkins is like Mesos to me. It's the OG, the original gangster.
Looking like day 2 CI or day 2 something.
You know, it suffers from the same open source problem everybody else does. It's hard to make money in open source.
Last famous words. Anything that our viewers should know, your recommendation on, give them your best advice. Like
Kubernetes is really just operating system stuff. It's got a lot of buzz going about it, but think about Kubernetes like you think about Linux. That's what it really is. Like CoreOS had it right. Let's just make a container operating system and let's just move Kubernetes down into the operating system level. Ultimately, that's what it is.
This was extremely interesting and fun.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I had a good time.